Welcome to the Man 360 podcast.
So thank you again for joining us for the Man 360 podcast. I'm your host, Brian. We always encourage you to connect with us on our Instagram, Facebook, our website, man360.tv, and that's also our handles for Facebook and Instagram. Today, I have the honor and privilege of talking again. We have a friend of the program, Jimmy Seitz.
Yep, good to see you, bro.
Jimmy, it's so good to see you.
As always. Can I get that ear here right there?
Yeah, please. I know I'm getting up there in the age. So
that's good.
So I wanted to have you again on the podcast today, just to talk a little bit about some things that you felt like God was downloading to you.
Absolutely.
And also just to hear that kind of wrapped in the outdoor world of, where you live.
You know, turkey season's coming up.
I know.
We just had the National Wild Turkey Federation right here.
See,
at this convention center.
You and Bodie are
That's
like this bird killing machines, right? I'm like, Yolanda and I go looking at birds. You guys like to shoot them and kill them.
I like to look at them too.
I like to eat them too.
Oh yeah, me
That's
too.
all good. So yeah.
I like to watch them. I like to shoot them, hunt them, and eat them. Yeah.
The whole process.
Not all birds. I don't eat cardinals.
No. Too pretty. Yeah. So talk to me about what you feel like God's been just downloading.
Okay. So as we're moving into turkey season, here we have, we had 100,000 people at the National Wild Turkey Federation.
Right.
It's a massive convention, and there were calls going everywhere. And this time of year, those of us who hunt, we practice. And I got to thinking about that the call, because so many people will come up to me and say, how do you know if God's calling me? How do I know? And you know what? I've come up with an answer for that. I got to thinking about that. I was doing some stump sitting, you know what I mean? And that's what we do.
Yeah.
Whether it's fishing or in a deer blind or in a stand or walking, I call it stump sitting. And I'm out there with God in nature, talking with him and him with me. And it's just awesome. And I'm not hearing his audible voice, but I'm hearing from him.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not something that just happens fast.
Yeah.
Now, if you're Samuel and you're 4 years of age and he calls you and you don't really know what's happening, and he does it again and then again, and you finally get it because you get direction from your mentor.
Yeah.
The priest.
Yeah.
Well, then, okay, you hear the voice of God, but that's not typically how God speaks with us. And I didn't learn how to call animals either just like that. I remember as a little kid at 205 Kellogg Road in North Little Rock, Arkansas, we had this like cutover in front of our house. It went for hundreds of acres. And I would sit on the front step of my house as a 5-year or 6 or 7-year-old and go, that's Bob White. Or I'd go, no, it'd be, that's a hen.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. And I would actually call quail across the road. They would fly, land in the yard, and be looking around. And I thought, this is so cool. So I learned how to call ducks. I learned how to call geese. I learned how to call deer. And that was, I'm 64 now, Brian, and I have spent a lot of time in the outdoors.
Yeah.
And the more I spend in the outdoors, the more I'm around these animals, the more I realize they have a language.
Yeah.
Their language is not only what they speak or do with their beak or whatever, their guttural sounds, but also even their tail. I know the language of white-tailed doe just from her tail or what she's telling her fawns, or if there's a buck around or whatever. There's a lot of various things that you learn, and you don't learn that quickly.
Yeah.
And so I'm listening and watching and learning.
Yeah.
And then I'm mimicking that. And so as I'm getting better and better with practice over time, also using calls too much sometimes or too little sometimes, or the wrong call when I should use this one, I'm learning. And that experience bank that I'm building up over all these decades of being out there have made me much more successful at calling in animals and deceiving them. And I'm doing it now more for other people. I think the call of God is very similar to that. I was called when I was 4 years of age, and there's absolutely no doubt that I was called to be a preacher, teacher. I do know that. But I did not hear the same voice that Samuel did as a 4-year-old. I heard it from my dad. My dad God used my dad, just like he used the priest to tell Samuel, do this the next time you hear that voice. My dad was a new Christian. He had been a Christian over 5 or 6 years, and he's already preaching because he feels like that's what he's supposed to do as he's military.
Yeah.
And so he's learning and growing, and somehow God put on his heart, tell your little boy, don't say if, say when you become a preacher. And so I felt that. And he began to take me early to church and put me behind a pulpit on a Coke crate. And I would literally preach one of my 2 sermons on the Good Samaritan or the temple.
Yeah.
And my sister had to endure this as at that time a 7 or 8-year-old and my mom. And then eventually other church members heard about it, and they would come early to church and listen to me. And I built up 5 or 6 sermons over the time. By the time I was 15, I was preaching at a church interim for 6 months between pastors.
Wow.
I did 2 churches. Yeah. And then in 17, I'm in college, I'm preaching for a church every Sunday through college. I've been preaching ever since.
Wow.
And so that call was super clear to me
that
I'm to live a missional life teaching the word of God. But it wasn't a one-time call.
Right.
And this is the thing that I think some people struggle with is it's like, well, how am I going to know when I'm called? Well, God may call you in various ways at various times.
Yeah.
He has called me to do something for several years, maybe a decade or two, and then completely changed that. Just said, okay, that lane is now closed.
Yeah.
I'm opening this lane over here, and it's a 180 flip.
I think that's hard too for Christians because it's like we feel like the call that God has for us is always and forever until we go to heaven.
I know.
And it's like even pivoting, and I've had friends that feel even called out of full-time ministry into like just, not church ministry, essentially, not even parachurch, but even going to, insurance salesman or something like that. And then in the church, we're like, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? Like, they got out of ministry, and it wasn't anything that was terrible. They just felt like God was directing them in a new direction.
Yeah. Which
so it was a new
that's
call
best for their family,
right?
Or whatever.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, man, when you're on a church staff and you're in ministry, paid ministry, it can be brutal.
Oh,
I was there.
That was one thing. Yolanda and I have talked about that. I love church, and I loved being a part of churches, when we were doing our thing. But now being a part, it's a different type of things that you have to deal with now in Christian television. But it's like, I know the call of, and mine was more like when I got sick, and I knew that there was things that I physically couldn't do, that God was changing and pivoting, but I was keeping my eyes on him. I think that's the most important thing, is making sure that you're still listening to what he is saying in that call.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was on a church staff for many years as both a youth pastor as well as a preaching pastor. And it's a very political situation.
Yeah.
And I go so far as to tell students when I'm teaching at a seminary or at a Christian college, maybe doing a J-term course, I will tell them, do not go into ministry and serve full-time with the church unless you feel the call of God to do so. It's too hard.
It's biblical, right? It says don't be a teacher unless you know that which what you're supposed to do, because there's a higher standard that God holds it to.
Correct.
You're responsible for other people's walks and their relationship with God, not just your own. And I think it's very, very important. I've told this to many people that Yolanda and I've mentored through the years. When you know that God has called you to something, that you make sure you know when God's giving you something, what's for others and what's for you. Because you can also dilute what you're speaking to other people and think, oh, I'm spending all this time with God. And it's like, you haven't spent any time with God. You've spent time with God to be able to speak to others, but not to allow him to speak to you.
When we pray, people think prayer is the initiation of a conversation with God. It's never
like
the initiation.
We're here, Lord.
We wouldn't even know to pray if God didn't first talk to us. I have grandkids now. And these little babies that are a year old that are learning to say Papa and Mama and all that, they would never know to speak if they weren't first spoken to. Our prayer is always response language. And the call of God to us, our answer to him is that. It is an answer. It's a response to him initiating call of us. Now, one of the things that people ask me is, well, how do I know if I can, do this call? What if I don't have the ability to do this call? And I'm going to give you a really classic example here. I was the pastor of a very large church, did a TV show that was shirt and tie, Amazing Grace Bible class, and teaching seminary. And God called me out of that to do spiritual outdoor adventures, to be an outdoorsman, and nobody would sponsor me, and I couldn't get it.
And by the way, your logo or your initial, like you have your half of your body is your suit, and the other half is your outdoor. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, but
that's it. I mean, it's
so great.
Show that on the screen right now.
I know.
That's exactly who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love both of those. Craig Morgan said, Jimmy, are you obeying the call of the wild or the call of the Lord? And I said, both.
Right.
He goes, that's so cool. Yeah.
Like John the Baptist, he's wild and he's calling.
I know, eating locusts and
seriously.
But God called me to do something totally different.
Yeah.
And I did have the ability to do that. But now here's the newest. After 22 seasons of spiritual outdoor adventures, in my 60s, God said, okay, time to stop. Now, he didn't audibly say that to me. But I have been listening and learning and building up that experience bank of our relationship with God and understanding him and speaking with him and hearing from him for so long. I felt that call as if it was the audible words right in the room, just, breaking my eardrums. It was absolutely clear. He said, stop producing spiritual outdoor adventures. I have a book for you to write. I'm in the 22nd season. It's our top season, highest rated season, the most we'd ever made financially from it. And it was at the top peak of the game. And he said, stop. So I did. And I was supposed to write Decoys of Deception. And we've, done a podcast together about that book. And it's been out since Father's Day now. So I got that done. Took a year and 3 months. The study guides out with it. And then he said, now I want you to do something else. You're going to start a new television show, but it's going to be a Hollywood production. It's going to be a really big budget production, like way more than, we spent more on one episode than us in on almost a season. 13 episodes of Spiritual Outdoor Adventures. And it's taken forever to edit it and way more money. And I'm learning things that I never knew about that type of production. It's called Basecamp 101, and it's going to be coming out fairly soon from now, as soon as we can get the remainder of the shows edited. But we've been on this thing for 2 years. And so here, all of a sudden, I'm asked to do something I've never done before at that level. And what am I going to say? It's the same thing people ask me, well, how can I know if I have the ability? Well, here's the key. It's not about ability. It's about availability. You avail yourself to God's call, whether you can do it or not, whether you think you can or not, and he gives you the ability. So it's the availability. And then he gives you the sustainability to carry it out. It's his call. He's going to make it happen. It doesn't matter what men think or say.
Well, he's going to give you, I feel like it's always been where God has pivoted Yolanda and I through life. It's always, to me, and I don't know how to say this, but it's like, it's always within the realm of what you can do up to a point in your flesh, but there's got to be a point where you have to know that I can't do this without God helping me.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you can do it without him, you would have probably already done it. Yeah, it's like, well, that's cool.
European Christianity.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But I don't really
know. It's like, and really, and I think what happens too is I think sometimes the longer we know God, we can drift into familiarity, right? And that talks about, again, losing that first love.
It's
that,
the familiarity of the Bible. I've already read it so many times. I already know what it says. I'm not going to read it anymore.
It's so crazy too, because it's like, even when you talk about calling, it's like I had a situation the other day where I told God, and I was like, God, if this happens, I will do this. And I didn't do what he asked me to do. And then I stepped back, and instead of just, beating myself up, and I'm like, and I knew it was something in what God had called me to do in this. And I was like, God, I had to evaluate and go, is there some drift in me that's pulling me away from my promise I made to him? And it wasn't anything earth shattering, and I'm not going to share, really what it is, because there's something between he and I. But it was something where I feel like I needed to really kind of just take a step back, pause, and just refresh again that call and that specific piece. And it didn't have to do with CTN, didn't have to do with Man 360 or those kind of things. It was just, I feel like there's also these, I don't know, they're like mini callings or things that you speak to God that are about a specific situation or something that you're doing very specifically.
They're little daily calls.
And I think that's great too. It's like, what is
you answer with a breath prayer. Seriously,
it is
a little single sentence prayer.
Well,
your answer to those little mini calls.
Well, even when we get up in the morning, is it like, are we listening to the call of God for that day? It's like, God, are we praying? Do we have a soul goal for that day?
Exactly.
Do we have a God? If you ask me to give something, I'm going to give it. If there's somebody you want me to pray with, and I think sometimes again we're like, and I think it's easier to do harder to do this if you're in full-time ministry or like parachurch ministry or work around ministry, because again, and especially Christian television, you think you're very spiritual, right? Because you're always doing something that's spiritual, connected to your personal life and your professional life. But being able to step back and go, God, I need your call at the core of who I am to be able to really change the world around me.
Absolutely. So that's why I love the outdoor lifestyle, because if you're in the outdoors, there so many distractions are taken away. A lot of the noise of life.
I love the outdoors.
Just get out there. And that's what, with this new Basecamp 101 show, we're trying to teach that to teenagers. Get outside, get away from your electronic babysitters, and spend time loving the creation and worshiping the creator. Love the creation and enjoy it, but worship the creator. Easy connect right there.
That's so awesome.
And so we're really excited about how that's happening. And when it comes to the actual call from God, I do believe it's all relational. And if you do not have a relationship with God, I don't think you can expect to even begin to understand the calling that he's giving. It's based on relationship. And the more you know God, the more you spend time with him, the more you are falling in love with him and learning and growing and being in his word and speaking with him and responding to him and doing the breath prayers on the daily basis and all of that, and walking with him, hand on the line of the mane of the line of Judah, hand on the wool of God, walking in between, staying on his trail, not following the call of the imposter lion. Now think about that.
Who comes like
first
a lion.
Like a lion. And we always think about that like, ooh, roar, stay away. No. We are being called to walk with the Lion of Judah. And he knows that. So he's trying to sound like the Lion of Judah. He wants to be like God. That's his whole premise. And so he's wanting to sound like God, so we'll follow him. So we have to know the difference between the fake call of the lion who wants to be the Lion of Judah versus the one who really is. We're going to walk with the one who is.
That's so good. Jimmy, thanks for being on the podcast.
I always love being with you, Brian.
It's so great to be
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we're like brothers.
I know.
I appreciate that.
I know. So thank you again for being a part of the podcast today. Again, you can connect with us on our Facebook, Instagram, also our website, man360.tv. We'll put some of the things that Jimmy had mentioned and some of the projects that he's working on, if you'd like to partner with him or connect with him, in the information in the description below. But again, thank you for being a part of this podcast, Jimmy, as always.
It's a blessing, man.
Great to be with you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
Thank
buddy.
you very much for having me.